this shaft right here to steady it and keep it from moving around. And some have a little more play than mine, I will admit that. But to keep this from moving around, welcome back to the community, everybody, and thank you all for being part of it. Something a little different today. Brian reached out to me, our transmission guy, and he said, I'm going to send you something because a lot of folks are saying my input shaft is loose. My input shaft is loose on their transmission. So honestly, there is going to be play in those. And he had said to me, I'm going to send you a video so that you can show why there is play in them and what takes the play away once you put your motor in. So we're going to go over that quickly here. This won't be a long drawn out video, and I'm going to show you what he was talking about, and maybe it'll help some of you folks. So let's take a peek. But something I want to bring to your attention is if you haven't had the chance yet, make sure you subscribe to VW Trans Magazine. I'm really a big supporter of them, and they do support me also. Pop down into the description below and go ahead and subscribe to VW Trends. They do a lot of stuff for us DIYers and things of that nature. So give it a shot. So whether you have an IRS or a Swingaxle, it isn't going to matter. We all have an input shaft on there. Now, a lot of folks, and I'll bring you up close in a second, complain about these being loose, and they think something's wrong with their transmission. So let me bring you up close so you can see it better. So here's the input shaft, and as you can see, mine don't have as much play as some, but I've had others that had a lot more slop back and forth. Okay, so as you can see there is some play. See how I can move it? All right, now that doesn't mean something is wrong with your transmission. So take a look here at this video that he sent, and I'll be right back.
Okay, Slade, this is basically the guts of a Type 1 4-speed transaxle laid bare without the case. This is the input shaft that goes all the way out to the engine. This is your pinion shaft, which turns the ring gear. The only thing connecting the main shaft to this input shaft, which goes all the way out and rides in the gland nut, is this little stud. So this stud threads in to the input shaft then as you're assembling the transmission, you put this in through the front of the case and thread it on until it bottoms out. You back it off a little, and then you line up these gears, and this reverse idler kind of couples the whole thing together, gets held in place with a little circlip. But this shaft protrudes through the differential portion of the transmission housing. Here's your splines for the clutch disc, and this rests in the gland nut of the engine itself. So the only bearings you have is a main shaft bearing all the way back here just below the nose cone of the transmission, and one small needle bearing that rides right here in the case. So when you have the engine removed, it's not uncommon to see play. It's hard to film one-handed, but it's not uncommon to see radial play on this input shaft because the far end is not supported by a bearing. That's over a foot, close to 16 inches from this small needle bearing in the transmission housing all the way to the needle bearing in the gland nut. I hope this helps.
Now, Brian sent this to me, which was very kind of him to take out the time and do. The input shaft is only supported by bearings, and the two blue circles that you see at the far right end by the needle bearing in the gland nut. Now, where the green colored gear is, the reverse gear set, there is a small stud connecting the two shafts. So that should make pretty good sense now of why you have play in your input shaft. All right, so that should make sense, but I'm going to show you close up what he was talking about with the gland nut. And I went over that in last week's video, so it'll help a little bit, but I'm going to show you something, and I'll show you that small clip. This ought to solve a lot of issues for people with concerns about their input shaft. Now, if you take a look, and I am going to run a little bit of like 1500 around here. It looks like a little pitting, but nothing. You can't feel it though. This shaft right here, to steady it and keep it from moving around, and some have a little more play than mine, I will admit that, but to keep this from moving around, when you slide the engine in, now this is obviously the back of your motor. When you slide the motor in, first of all, the clutch, of course, it has to slide through the clutch first, and you see the splines on the clutch plate. They guide it right onto the input shaft. After it passes through the clutch plate, it goes in further into the gland nut. Now here's your gland nut here. That's what holds the flywheel on. So when it goes through, the shaft is going to go through the gland nut. Now inside the gland nut, okay, where the shaft is going to go through it, this is on your motor, the shaft's going through the gland nut, is a roller bearing inside of it. Now that roller bearing sits inside of the gland nut, and that input shaft will spin inside of here with the needle bearings, okay? So once you do that, the input shaft has gone into here. This is threaded into the crankshaft. That input shaft can't go nowhere. So I hope that made sense. Transmission input shaft is going right through and into the engine block, basically into the crankshaft. That is the best way that I can really explain it to you, because the gland nut is threaded into there. I hope I explained it right. It may have come out a little wonky about going into the engine, but I'm sure that you know what I mean. And here's what's coming up now. Very important stuff. All right, so the plan of attack is still the same. What's coming up? I'm going to put the motor in. Not complete. The exhaust is not on it. The alternator's not on it, okay? But I am going to put it in to get the weight in the back. The exhaust system, the alternator, all the other stuff that has weight to it, I'm going to put in the luggage compartment. Then roll the vehicle back and forth to try to level out these wheels, tires, etc., so that they sit even, I should say, straight up and down the best they can. Then we're going to go ahead and we are going to adjust the torsions. So that'll be a little bit of a longer, extensive video. And the reason why, if you're new to the channel, you may have missed it, but the left side of my car is down 3/4 to 1 inch on the left side, the lean. Now, that's okay, because a lot of them are like that. Sometimes people play with their aprons and fenders and they can't get it right. No, it's because there was a driver in the car for the last 50 years and not many passengers, and eventually it starts to sag. We're going to go ahead and level the car out. The reason I say it may be a little bit of a longer video than normal is we can measure all day long and then take everything apart and adjust it, and then it's still off. Brian and I were talking about that. It was pretty funny. He said, get ready to get frustrated. You know, he don't know and I don't know until I do it. He says, you'll be putting it together, taking it apart, putting it together, taking it apart, and putting it together and taking it apart. So I'll time lapse a lot of that though, so that you're not sitting there watching me, you know, take it apart, put it together. So after I do it the first time, if it's not level, which I'm sure it won't be, I'll go ahead and time lapse pulling it back apart, but I won't time lapse every time I make an adjustment. So I hope that makes sense. It's going to give me a chance to use something that somebody sent me in the mail. Now, as we peek inside of the fender, you can see the cap for the torsion. Now, them bolts have been on there for at least 50 years. I guarantee it. And the nice thing is, he sent me one of our club members, and who I consider a family member, a dear friend, Adam Gray. He had sent me a can of Kroil. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. He had it shipped straight to my house, and I have never tried it yet. And the reason is this stuff is expensive. Ugh, but I do appreciate him sending it. I didn't want to waste it on something just to see how it worked. These bolts have been in there forever. I don't want them breaking off. So we're going to put Kroil to the test. So leave something in the comments if you've tried this before. I've always used good old PB Blast. Now, I'm not knocking this. It's got me out of a lot of problems, okay? However, Kroil versus PB Blast. So stay tuned for next week's video. I'll already have the motor in. If the motor was all dressed up and done, I would do a film of engine installation, but I'm not going to do it. Maybe I'll do it in time lapse it real quick, but you're not going to see a whole lot with the way I got it set up. It's hard to describe. So we're getting there. As soon as we get that done, I'll be sanding in the background as usual, but I think we're going to go ahead and spray the dash and the top of the heater channels and the door pillars to get that out of the way. I'm trying to do stuff in a certain order. It might not make sense, but it's easier for me to do it that way. So I hope everything made sense there. And Brian, thank you very much for reaching out. I appreciate it. You've been a good friend too. I appreciate that. Hopefully that'll help some people with the input shaft play. They're always worried their transmissions are bad. He did a really good job in that video explaining that. And Adam, thank you for the Kroil. We'll go ahead and we're going to see if any of the bolts break. I hope not. We got 8 of them to remove, and I did buy new rubber bushings for the torsion area. So see you Sunday night for live chat. I hope everybody has a really, really great night.